women do not find men in dresses to be attractive.
Hi beautiful people, my name is Brenda Marie Davies. This channel, God is Grey, advocates for sex-positive, LGBTQ+ affirming, science-believing faith. And today we're unpacking Candace Owens' fear of cis men in white dresses. But before we dive in, today on the God is Grey podcast, I'm interviewing a host of the Heretic Happy Hour, Katie Valentine, who is an ordained minister and New Testament scholar, empowering Jesus followers to claim their metaphysical gifts. So click the link below to listen. So on the December cover of Vogue, 26-year-old Harry Styles wore a dress. In response to this, conservative author and commentator Candace Owens tweeted, quote, "There is no society that can survive without strong men. In the West, the steady feminization of our men at the same time that Marxism is being taught to our children is not a coincidence. It is an outright attack. Bring back manly men," which is conspiratorial to say the least, and I've got a conspiracy of my own, which is that maybe, just maybe, Candace made this inflammatory statement to draw attention to herself while promoting her new book.
I just sometimes wonder if she's not getting caught up in the performance of it all, as opposed to these being her real values.
Anyway, this tweet went trending, with both positive accolades and negative backlash. So Candace doubled down with this Instagram video.
I would never allow my kids near a man that's wearing a dress. That's my personal opinion. You can call that however you want to call that.
I'll call it homophobic.
It's completely not normal, to feminize men and to keep pretending that this is progressive. It's not progressive.
And I'll tell you, I am feeling spicy about this because 1, I do not trust Candace's intentions. I think she may just be promoting her book at the expense of others. 2, statements like this cost her nothing to just spew them into an already divided and hateful nation. The truth is, it's the marginalized and the bullied who will have to deal with the backlash of Candace's promoted bigotry. And Candace, I am begging you to be more thoughtful and to do better. And before I do my own dissection of this, I really want to amplify the voice of Matt Bernstein, a queer artist and YouTuber who so eloquently pointed out the harmful misogyny, homophobia, and transphobia taking place in Candace's video.
If you live in the projects, if you live on the streets and you see somebody a man wearing a dress, you assume that they have mental issues.
Now, besides this being obviously misogynistic and homophobic and transphobic, what I think Candace is talking about is that it's true that sometimes you may be walking on the street and you see someone who might appear to be a man in a dress or a wig or someone who looks generally androgynous and like they're having a hard time. But Candace, the reason that these people end up on the streets in this position is in part because of the exact bigotry that you're spewing to 3 million people. LGBTQ people, especially trans people of color, are disproportionately likely to experience homelessness.
Look at Kurt Cobain wearing this dress, Candace. Oh, he looked like a person that was very stable and mentally healthy. Let me go try to live my life like that.
You know, this idea that androgynous people have mental health issues. Can we talk about my mental health before I was able to come out of the closet and express myself? Because I can tell you that my mental health is a whole lot better now than it used to be. And a big part of that is because I feel the freedom to live and express myself exactly how I want to.
Period.
Beautifully said. Beyond what Matt pointed out, all of which I agree with, Candace spends the last portion of her video claiming that she, as a mother, will be on the moral high ground for taking this stance on men in dresses.
Everything the left does and touches, everything that these Holly weirdos promote, is about destroying basic values that work. A nuclear family, having a feminine and a masculine figure who raise solid kids with good values.
But this lack of self-awareness blows my mind. In a discussion with one of my best friends, who is also a mother like me, we both agree that Candace is doing nothing but teaching her future children how to be bullies like she is. In elementary school, we're taught not to judge a book by its cover, to be ourselves, to be kind, to share, to not tease or be cruel. But here Candace is, a grown woman, teasing a man for what he's wearing. That said, I won't pretend to be ignorant about Candace's stance. Though she herself demands religious freedom and freedom from government intervention, I'm willing to bet that her true fear lies in the belief that there is a gay agenda out to destroy America. Which is wild, because Harry wearing a dress does not suggest that Candace's husband or sons wear dresses. This cover isn't a call to action, and Harry himself barely promoted it, putting out one tweet announcing he was on the cover of Vogue. As a matter of fact, more often than not, it is the religious people imposing their sexual orientation and their values onto LGBTQ+ people, while LGBTQ+ people are simply asking to be left alone and to live life as themselves. But this is where I think it gets deeper for Candace. After her original tweet gained attention, she added, quote, "I said what I said and I meant it. Hollywood is filled with satanic freaks that are corroding values. There is nothing cool and progressive about men in gowns. Toxic masculinity is a phrase created by miserable, single, toxic females." So let's break down this tweet one point at a time, because all three of these notions are flawed. Okay, so this three-prong messy tweet. First of all, Candace's fears of gender-bending behavior and attire are indeed hypocritical, noting her own wardrobe choices and career. When I googled Candace Owens' suit, I was met with a plethora of images. Furthermore, from an objective view, Candace herself does not represent the classic American ideal of femininity, being that she's not seemingly submissive nor a housewife. As a matter of fact, she put off pregnancy until 31 years old, focusing instead on her education and career. She is living out a classically masculine lifestyle. That said, Candace often generalizes and demonizes modern feminism, saying, quote, "Toxic masculinity is a phrase created by miserable, single, toxic females." I'd feel attacked, except I am none of those things. People are more nuanced and complicated than that, Candace Owens included. Also, it's interesting that Candace is willing to label women as toxic, but won't grant the same capacity to men. For those who don't know, toxic masculinity is as it sounds. No one is attacking manliness. It's the toxic part we're calling out. Masculinity, when toxic, looks like men desperate to fit into their gender script at the detriment of themselves or others. Culturally, manliness has been measured as the guy who gets laid the most, even while married. The gangster with the most guns and kills, the rapper with the most cars and hoes, the frat boys who are forced to drink to oblivion to prove that they're men. Toxic masculinity shows itself in the rampant suicide rates of middle-aged white guys, in the repression of emotion, in the assertion that violence equals power, in the truth that the second leading cause of death for young women is homicide at the hands of a romantic partner. And the front page of Pornhub is a bleak glance into the toxic masculine narrative of pornography, which is almost never female pleasure-based and is often violent or forced. And Pornhub is where many of our young men and women are receiving their sexual miseducation. And Candace, what is a manly man anyway? Harry Styles is, yes, wearing a dress, but he's still got chest hair, still sleeps with women, and has successfully achieved the American dream, being massively rich and successful. Jaden Smith, Kurt Cobain, David Bowie, Tilda Swinton, and Annie Lennox have all worn the, quote, wrong clothes for their gender throughout their careers. And this doesn't bend their gender, it's simply a change of clothes. Harry is open about this, saying, quote, "There's so much joy to be had in playing with clothes. I've never thought too much about what it means. It just becomes this extended part of creating something." And to your rebuttal, Candace, that, quote, "mining pictures of men in dresses is not going to suddenly make you attracted to men in dresses."
Women do not find men in dresses to be attractive.
Well, who says Harry Styles is trying to attract you? I personally find Harry's confident playfulness very attractive. And in the words of Jimmy Snow,
"You know who can get it? Harry Styles in a dress."
Anyway, now I'm lusting. But where is the inherent threat to masculinity in this photo? And let's take Candace's point that, quote, "There is nothing cool and progressive about men in gowns." Candace is dang right about that. A man in a dress or skirt looks more like paying homage to history versus doing anything fresh or progressive or new. Men throughout time have worn petticoats, stockings, wigs, frilly blouses, skirts, and robes. The origin of high heels can be traced back to 15th century Persia, where soldiers wore them to help secure their feet in stirrups. The modern cowboy boot is a result of this. In the 15th century, Persian migrants brought the shoe trend to Europe, where male aristocrats wore them to appear taller and more formidable. In 1673, King Louis famously introduced shoes with red heels and red soles to the French court, which is why we have red bottoms today. As for skirts and dresses, they were worn throughout history by military men, and in the Roman Empire were considered proof of virility and allowed for swiftness while in combat. Loincloths and togas denoted class and status for Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. For centuries, skirts and dresses were worn by both men and women. But I imagine Candace would say her point still holds water, being that in our modern day society, dresses are considered feminine. But Candace, you inciting all this fear and anxiety around a pop star wearing a dress in 2020 is still being dishonest to your audience. Because the truth is, men and women have been gender bending their attire for as long as we know of. More recently, in the 1980s and 90s, as women were offered more career options, more women began wearing suits like their male counterparts. Something I'd assume, Candace, you've done in your own career to be taken more seriously. And does Candace's suit wearing degrade the feminine? By her own argument against Harry Styles, her answer should be yes. Her suits are an attack on feminine values, which is obviously not a statement I'd agree with, but this still begs the question, why is Candace so threatened by a man in a dress? And here I could point out that we are accustomed to a patriarchal society, and I don't mean that as a dirty liberal catchphrase. I mean it as a point of fact. For example, although masculine and feminine pronouns are used to describe God in the original Greek and Hebrew Bible, our English language doesn't have a non-binary word, and in each case where God is described by a feminine pronoun in the original text, English translators made it masculine. We've been taught that God is a man, like divinity actually has male genitalia, and to have a successful society, men must hold the power. For this reason, our United States have been governed by men exclusively up until very recently. But if we're being honest, having more women in positions of power, politically and in the workforce, has led to our improvement as a society, with representation being the key to advocating for equality. And if any conservatives want to argue with that statement, let's remember that Amy Coney Barrett was propped up as an exceptional candidate for balancing a high-powered career and 7 children. And there are plenty of female leaders the world over, from the Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Ministers of Namibia, Denmark, Bangladesh, Norway, the UK, and the presidents of Liberia, Chile, South Korea, Lithuania, and Poland. And although America is accustomed to patriarchy, matriarchal societies do exist, both among humans and animals, with female lions, hyenas, elephants, killer whales, and bonobos holding the primary positions of power in their groups. And now, the most mind-blowing discovery I made in this research was that influential theologians such as John of Damascus and John Scotus, and early Christian leaders such as Origen and Gregory of Nyssa promoted the idea of androgyny as humans' original and perfect state. Quote, "The androgen represents the mystery of creation. If Adam was created in God's image, thus inherently bisexual, the introduction of the female symbolizes the beginning of the fall from a state of perfection into duality. Androgyny is also the beginning and the end, as is Alpha and Omega. It is by nature both dualism and wholeness, the reunion of the original male-female essences." In other words, the gender scripts we've been given as evangelicals outright contradicts early church fathers who considered androgyny and bisexuality to be the perfect state of being before the fall of the world. If that blows your mind, I am right with you. And frankly, I don't care if you believe me yet. Right now, we are talking about Candace Owens and how she mistreats her fellow humankind. So Candace, lastly, when you say Hollywood is filled with satanic freaks that are corroding values, I would counter you with the true meaning of satanic. In the earliest text, Satan could be translated to the divider, one who creates division, and therefore promoting more ignorance and more hate makes you, in the truest sense of the word, the satanic one, the divider. And for the love of God, let's allow children to lead the way. Children know how to play and be lighthearted. They don't divide each other by nationality or religion or political lean. Children generally think deeply and lean into curiosity, and I would hope the answers we we give them are full of compassion and non-judgment. Let's not impose our flawed upbringings, our bigotry and hate onto this next generation. When Jesus himself said, Mark 10:13, "Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child will not enter it at all." And that's it. I love you all so much. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, donate to my Patreon or Venmo if you can. I love you all so much. God bless.